Yeah. 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 Allow me to introduce myself. Just in case you don't know. Say hello. 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 Yeah.
Fantastic. Hello and welcome to another episode of the All Things Aviation Pod. We are super excited today because we've got a great guest amongst us. I am Daps and I've got the lovely Nadine as well. And then Pilot Bruno, who is quite popular on Instagram for doing Pilot Bruno things with his Grumman. I am super excited. I'm such a fanboy of this man, and the fact that he's taken some time out to come speak with us today is quite incredible. Pilot Bruno, welcome on our show. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing great. It's great to be on the show again. And thanks for inviting me. It's lovely to be a part of this and talk aviation. I'm always down for it.
That's fantastic, my man. What's really interesting about you is that, so I've been following your journey online, and I said this to you before. It's not just the fact that you own your own aircraft and you do a lot of fun flights and you do a lot of videos and take a lot of cool pictures. It's your ability to make the pictures pop on the gram. Yeah, you must obviously have a secret for, first of all, you're doing them, but then you're making them pop. It's like the filters you use, all these things. So you're obviously multi-talented.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes. Aside from aviation, photography is a hobby that I developed. I would say recently. I work in advertising, and for those who work in advertising on the creative side, it's really easy to kind of start falling in love with filmmaking, photo, and anything that's related to art. So when I started really flying, which it was not too long ago, I already had that passion and had developed some sort of like style for photography, or an eye, if you will. And I just once I started flying, I figured out a way to merge both, and the results were great. I mean, I liked them, and I started to, just post them. I remember that when I started my first Instagram account for aviation, what I wanted to do was really to just share the journey of someone who always loved aviation and had that passion and was starting to or learning how to fly, and the good parts and the bad parts, of that journey. And soon I realized that as I was naturally or organically apply my photography styles to the way I was showing that story or telling that story, I figured I had found a kind of a unique way to do it, and that's sort of like the style that I stick to this day.
Wow!
And it's probably what kind of makes my the gallery or even my content look a little different, because I just try to merge those both of those passions. I'm definitely not the only one doing that. There are amazing photographers that are also pilot and vice versa out there. I just think that it's a formula, my own formula that worked for me.
Yeah, no, that's incredible, man. And I'm glad you said that, because as we step into a world of content creation ourselves, we've obviously started our podcast since the last time that we spoke. Initially we were doing this on Clubhouse, a platform that allowed us to, go into specific rooms, set a topic and talk about that topic. So it was audio only based. And then as we started to step out of the world of audio only to video and content creation, it's important for me to start looking at the type of content that I would aspire to create when I finally get to that level. I want to be able to create videos in aircrafts as well. And you're going to see a lot of things, because I'm not sure if you'll ever come to Europe, maybe after COVID is over, but we would like to invite you to Europe. I'm not sure how your Grumman will get here. If it doesn't get here, it's fine. But when you come to Europe, we would like to shoot some content with you as well in European airspace. But when that day comes, obviously that day comes. But what we're trying to learn as a team is how to create content, how to make it look good. And my sort of one of the pages I use is yours, so that's why I had to bring that up. Is Pilot Bruno's page is perfect for home. It's perfect for homework, for studies.
Thank you.
But
I'm flattered.
You started flying. So you did your private pilot's license. Did you do that in America, or where did you start flying?
I started flying here in America, yes, after I moved to New York. I'm born and raised in Brazil. My hometown is São Paulo. That's where I spent the first 30 years of my life, probably a little more. And then, thanks to work, I got a job offer in the United States, in New York, and I took the offer. I moved to the U.S., and that was all related to advertising, which has been my career since I got off college. Aviation, on the other side, has been a passion since I was a 5-year-old. And even though when I was a kid, I obviously wanted to pursue that passion for a career, I saw myself as being an airline pilot, an airline captain.
Wow.
And somewhere along the way, and I think that's not uncommon, that kind of dream sort of like fell apart because, one, it was really hard to do pilot training in Brazil. It was really expensive. And there was one thing that as I was just, growing into an adult, that I had in mind, which was the fact that you would spend too much time away from family. That was the thing that was put in my mind, probably by my mom. But at some point I decided that, okay, so being a pilot perhaps is not a reality for me. What else can I do in aviation? And I started looking at, engineering, aviation engineering, for instance, or I had some of those things in mind. But as I think there's a point in your teenagehood where you start to decide what you want to do for a living, what you want to grow as a professional into. And I discovered advertising, perhaps because it was a way of I would make a living out of just creating things, which I was also passionate about. And that ended up being the right choice for me at the time. Gladly, it was a career that 30 years later, well, not 30 years, but perhaps 20 years later, allowed me to pursue my love for aviation once I moved to the US. So I'm forever thankful to that. I'm still in the advertising business. In fact, I'm having this interview from my office right now because, things I had like meeting after meeting today and I couldn't go back home. But and then as I started to just, put my head out there and decided that telling my aviation story was something that could be worth worth doing and that maybe people could pay attention, I realized that I had all this knowledge that I gained through my career and I learned in doing advertising, which is storytelling, right? And so I really try to turn my journey in aviation into an inspirational story that people can follow, that people can, and whether you're following daily through an Instagram page or through videos, on my YouTube channel, which I put a lot of work into, not because I want them to be perfect, but just I want them to be worthy of your time, And so that's sort of, I found out that thanks to this background that I had in advertising, I could try to do something different in aviation, and how to approach content creation in aviation, and I have been doing a lot of fun so far in doing so. It's definitely one of my biggest passions aside from advertising now.
Wow. And that's really interesting because I have a similar sort of thing where I initially wanted to be an airline pilot. And, as I grew older, like you said, I started to see what the lifestyle of a pilot was. And obviously I followed a different, career path in the end. And the career path that I followed has allowed me to do more presenting work, more creation or creative content and directing. And it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. But when I think about the idea of, reporting at an airport at 4:30 in the morning and flying for, a lot of hours during the day and being gone from family, it was something that I fancied at age 18. I loved that idea, the idea that I'll be dressed up a specific kind of way and I'll be walking across any airport in the world. That was an idea that I really fancied at a younger age. The older that I get, the less of that I want. I prefer, like you, to be able to jump in a Grumman or in a Cessna and fly at low altitudes, take nice pictures, obviously not in crucial aspects of flights, but, to be able to, make content that I can really enjoy for myself. I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still flying, but I'm not having to report. I'm free. I'm truly free because I have the ability to taste flight without having to do it for somebody else,
Right.
And I think that that's something that some people come to as a realization. Others don't. Some people are still going to go into the airlines and on the military or wherever and that's perfectly fine. But I love to hear stories where some people figure out also that, no, you know what, I want to go general aviation. That's where I see myself. You know, I can fly to Oshkosh and all these fun air shows, which we're going to get to in a second, by the way. But, you know, that idea of keeping it just local, I think is very, very attractive. Let's talk about, so what age were you exactly when you started training? Because I think this will encourage some people who think that, man, I'm 30, I'm too old to train, I'm 29. No, it doesn't make a difference, you know, because what age were you when you started?
I started at 34.
There you go. Great.
And you know, it's funny that you mentioned this. Is I recently got more than a couple of messages from older aviation enthusiasts at 57, 63, and their specific question to me was, I am 57. Is that too old to start learning to fly? Or I am 70 something. Is that too old? And listen, I can't speak for people's health or their ability to learn or not at a certain age. But I'll tell you this, in my 37 years of life experience, I'll tell you that it's never too late to pursue a dream or a passion, especially if it's been your passion since since you were a kid. It's funny. This past weekend, I was in an Uber from a hotel to the airport. I flew to Niagara Falls.
Wow! Yeah, I saw that.
Like upstate New York.
I saw that.
And I had an Uber pick me up at the hotel, and I was driving back to the airport to fly my plane out of there back to New York. And the Uber driver, we started talking about aviation, and he told me that he was from Poland. He now lives in the New York State, I think in Buffalo, and he always wanted to be a pilot. He had that dream, and I asked him, like, why didn't you pursue this? Oh, I have 2 kids, and now I have this life, and I think I'm too old. And I told him, like, listen, I'm not 60-year-old, a 60-year-old to tell you, hey, I've done this, like I have this experience. But if you've had that passion for this long in your life, you got to do something about it, because we don't live forever. And so you might at least give it a try, And when it comes to aviation, I don't know if it applies to other people's passions. Like, for instance, if you want to jump in a parachute or skydive, there's no like, oh, let's do like a test version of this. You're either jumping or not, right? Yeah. But in aviation, you can go to a flight school, and in the United States, there happens to be one, at least one at every airport. And you ask for an intro flight. You won't pay much. You go up for 30 minutes to 45 minutes, maybe sometimes an hour. And on that flight, you may get a chance to realize, oh, this is something that I want to do, or nah, it's fine. I tried and it's fine. Yeah. So at least you can try. They call it a discovery flight for a reason. Yeah. So I always encourage people, like, it doesn't hurt to try. It doesn't cost too much either, before you commit to it. So again, to that point, I started at 34, and I know that's far later than people in aviation start. You have kids with in their 13s, 14s start. And I wish I had, because at that age, it's so much easier for you to learn things, and do. Plus, when you get to 22 and you turn 23 and you are already a CFI, you hold a lot of different ratings because you had the time to put them, like you didn't have work to. Sometimes you had just the time to put in studies and so forth. Yeah, I think you benefit from it. And then at 25, you find out that you already have the hours to pursue a career in an airline, if that's your dream, to pursue a career in business aviation, corporate aviation, charters, or if you just want to have aviation as a hobby and you want to pursue something else. At least you have the rest of your life to enjoy it. So. I definitely encourage. I would say it's never too late, provided that your health allows you to do it safely. That's the first. That's the only caveat that I would do. If your health allows it, I'm pretty sure the passion will do will do the rest.
Wow, wow, and as a pilot now, you're flying, privately. You're flying your own aircraft. Do you see yourself doing that for the foreseeable future, long term, or do you have other aspirations as well? Do you ever see yourself maybe, like you said, doing business aviation or anything else, or is it just you and your Grumman forever?
I honestly, my answer to that is I don't know. Is I'm open to everything for now and for the foreseeable future. I would say I see myself in general aviation with my plane, just trying to make the most of having a pilot's license and being in the air. For me, being like flying is a therapy. Honestly, it's a moment for me where all the other problems in life, or not problems because that's too dramatic, but all of the other things that is stressing in life, whether it's like work or the errands that you want to run, or all the other obligations that life makes you abide to. I think when I'm flying, everything stays on the ground and I'm up there, and it's a therapy. And sometimes I have a place I want to fly. Sometimes I want to. I don't even have anywhere to go. I just want to fly. Fly patterns around the airport, and keep proficient at doing stuff. And that to me is a therapy. I really like it. So for as long as I can do that, I want to do it. Wow. Do I want a career in aviation? Do I want to pursue a commercial license and perhaps take advantage of the doors that will open if I get a commercial license? Yeah, maybe. I'm definitely open to it. There are a lot of pressures and obligations that come with committing to a work in aviation. That as a private pilot who flies for fun or as a hobby, you don't have to. I'll give you an example. Today, if I were to fly to Niagara Falls and the weather's fine, and I assess all of the information regarding that flight, and I feel good about it, I go. If there's one thing that's off, or maybe something that I don't feel really confident about, I'll call it off. And I know that I'm not hurting anybody's plans. Maybe somebody else who's coming with me, but as a pilot in command, I need to call it. Let's fly, let's not fly. That's my obligation. If I was working and I had to fly that day because I have passengers that I had to deliver cargo, documents, or whatever, there's an added pressure that comes along. And I've seen a lot of pilots get in trouble, not to mention in accidents, because they felt the pressure to fly somewhere that they didn't feel comfortable with, whether it's weather, nights, if they were tired but they had to go anyway. Like your assessment as a pilot starts getting trumped by. It's easy to have pressure overcome your personal judgment and your personal limits and your personal minimum. Now, I'm not saying that it happens to everybody, but it just the added pressure of flying for a living or flying as with a mission that you have to deliver something, or I don't know if I would have fun doing that right now. Obviously, if you get hired by a company, if you're doing this for somebody, I want to assume that it means that you are proficient enough, and most pilots are in feeling comfortable with doing whatever, but still, I've heard from a lot of pilots, learning to deal with that pressure and not letting it overcome your personal limits and your judgment or overshadow, let's say. It's something that they have to learn how to deal, for their own safety and the safety of those they're carrying. So as of now, I benefit from this freedom and this lack of pressure to fly. That it's a blessing, and you got to know that once you start going up the ladder and elevated to a commercial flying, or something that commits to a company, and then you need to fly, you need to get this thing to that other place, you have to be really sure that you're comfortable and confident in yourself, that the other elements that will get in the way, you are comfortable with just facing them and, getting to the other side.
Wow. Um, I want to get into something that a lot of people aspire in their lives. Well, especially if you're in that aviation space, a general aviation space. You've taken a few lessons, or maybe you've got a private pilot's license. Some people might aspire to own their own aircraft. They might aspire to buy one or lease one. And you've done something similar. And I think that your story about how you came into contact with your aircraft is a really cool story. Would you be kind enough to tell that story again to our audience and anybody listening, just how you came about the aircraft, what you had to be thinking about? I've had conversations with, aircraft brokers, and they'll tell you before you buy an aircraft, one of the first things to consider is the utility of the aircraft. What are you going to use the aircraft for? Are you going to meetings? Do you want to fly for fun? What exactly are you bringing your family with you most weekends when you're going down south? Maybe you're going 1,000 miles down south. You want to bring your family with you. So you have to think about all of these things. Now, as someone that has done that and has done that successfully and is not just owning the aircraft, but maintaining it and flying it frequently, would you like to take us through that whole journey?
Yeah, of course. So you said it yourself, and I think that's the first thing. If you're ever thinking about buying your own aircraft, the first thing you have to know is what's your mission with that plane. For most people who are starting in aviation, it may be building hours. And if you want a plane to build hours and have the freedom to do it whenever you want, you have to, you don't need an aircraft that carries a lot of weight, a lot of passengers, or that demands a lot maintenance-wise. You may want an aircraft that it's easier to maintain, that's not complex. That you may that might guide your choices. Whereas if you want to fly every weekend, taking your family to Florida or to anywhere else in the country, then you might have to make a different decision and go for a bigger aircraft, and that implies on different choices, different costs, and cost planning and financial planning and so on. So that's the first thing. If you're looking for your own aircraft, like in my case, when I decided to buy my own aircraft, I had just finished my instrument rating, and at that point, when I finished, I understood, and I had it very clear that in order for me to be proficient, to stay proficient in flying, and therefore safe, I had to fly often. And I made a commitment to myself that I wanted to fly at least 100 hours per year. I had flown 100 hours per year during my trainings, both for private pilot, which I completed in like 5 months. I flew every weekend on the rest, on the rest of the year, and then instrument rating, same thing. I think it was 5 months, and then I decided to fly for the rest of the year. And I had that commitment because I work Monday through Friday. So I thought, well, I got to fly every weekend, because if I go 1 week or more than 1 week without flying, the next time I jump on a plane, I might not be like as safe as I would be if I flew every week. So that was my first concern. So I committed to 100 hours. Once I did that, which seemed reasonable, in a year, I just put pen to paper, and I realized that if I would rent like a plane for 100 hours per year, at the cost of that rentals are in New York, I can't speak for other places of the country, but specifically New York, I would be spending a lot of money that for me was worth it, because it's my biggest passion. But if I acquired a plane and had my own plane, not only I would be, let's say, saving money, because the upfront cost of the acquisition is far greater than renting, of course. But in the long term, and I wanted to be I was in this for the long run. I knew that the hourly cost of my plane would be far lower than the hourly cost of rental. Not to mention the freedom of the freedom of flying whenever I wanted. So the next phase was to define what kind of plane I wanted. What's my mission? I had just finished my training. Like I said, I had flown Piper Cherokees and Cessna 172s during my entire training. So obviously, that's where I started. I soon learned that they are super expensive here in the U.S. I mean, the prices are are skyrocketing. The market is insane, and I don't know what's going on, but like a plane that you could get for X amount of dollars 3 years ago is going for twice as much
Wow.
today,
Wow.
and everybody's raising their prices. So I got a little scared by that. I was like, oh, can I afford this? Can I not afford this? This is the range of budget that I have. What planes fit in it, you know? And I started seeing that I would have to either go to, like a very small plane, like a 150 or 152 on that range, or I could go for bigger planes or faster planes, but much older, with much more hours in the airframe. So I was kind of like balancing and making a choice, and I found myself in a place where, because I was doing this for the first time, I felt like I needed coaching. I felt like I needed advice from other plane owners. So I go to the Facebook page, and for it's called like Aircraft Sales and Buy or something. I'm still a part of it. It has like 90,000 not subscribers but followers, and everybody's there. And I posted this honest message saying, I'm Bruno. I just become, I'm a private pilot, low hours. I have I had 170 hours at the time or something. I'm looking to buy my plane. This is my mission. I wanted to continue to fly, stay proficient. I didn't need to a big useful load because I didn't have I don't have kids. I don't have a big dog that I have to haul over the place. So I just said this is the category of plane that I'm looking at. You guys here are better than me. Can you guys give me some advice? And then it was like 500 comments and people just saying hey, buy my plane. I'm selling my plane. Here's my plane. And try to sell their plane to me. And or people saying don't buy this plane. Don't buy that plane or whatever. And then this guy reached out to me privately, and I didn't know him, and he was a corporate pilot, and he said, I have a friend in Long Island, New York, and he hasn't advertised his plane yet, but I know he wants to sell, and it's a Grumman Cheetah. I had never flown a Grumman. I had never actually seen one, but I knew that it was a plane in the same category of the ones that I was looking at. And it seemed to be a plane that hadn't been advertised yet. So I called the owner, and he's the super nice guy. We're friends to this day. He's not only a CFI, but he flies charter flights in the Caribbean, and a super experienced guy. And he was asking for a very, very reasonable price that was within my budget. And I went to see the plane, and it was in great shape. Looked to be very well maintained. The history was all there. I spoke with the mechanic, and he said, listen, there's nothing shady about the past of this plane. They have all the logs. They have all the history. It's not a bad deal. And mind you, I didn't have any experience. So I was just being guided by people around me, right? I ended up getting the plane. I started to fly it. I learned about everything that was particular about it, everything that was different from the Cherokees and the Cessnas, which I wasn't really told about. I was doing a lot of research on my own and learning to fly the plane, as I go. I got a checkout in it, but you really learn. It takes literally months, if not years, for you to really get familiar with your plane. And every flight and every experience, I learned more about it. We become more kind of connected. So, and then the other thing that I learned that was super important for me, I learned a lot about mechanics, because when you rent planes and you are doing, training to get your licenses, mechanics it's something that you rarely really pay attention to. You memorize for the sake of a written test, for the sake of an oral check ride exam or something, but you don't have to pay attention to mechanics because you're not maintaining the plane. You just go to the flight school, you jump on the plane, you fly. And there's a CFI right next to you. And if something goes wrong, you just say, go back to the airport or whatever. Owning a plane forces you to learn about mechanics and how to take care of your plane, how to care for your engine, your tires, your the airframe, everything. You know how things break. You know how to fix them or what needs to be done to fix it. You know how avionics systems work. And I got a new avionics suite installed on the plane right after I bought it, because I wanted it to be not only safer but a good IFR platform. And I learned a lot about the systems that were being removed or replaced and how the new ones work, so I could troubleshoot them if I was alone somewhere, like I learned how to turn the wrench and open the engine cowling and try to spot if there was something that was off, something that wasn't meant to be in that state. And it's every flight is a new lesson, and I just as I look back now from the day I bought the plane to this day, which is like a little over a year, one thing that I can safely say is that I've become a much more mature pilot, because I feel like an adult versus the child that I was in aviation when I bought the plane. And I know so much more about flying, about the plane, about mechanics, about what to care for. I've been through experiences with it, good and bad ones. And those are the ones who really teach you, And sometimes when you're just, doing training and you want to go from private to instrument to commercial to multi-engine to CFI, and you're aiming that airline career, it's very common for pilots to fly in the same area at the same airports on the same weather every single time, because you're just trying to get those hours in. And that's how training goes, Whereas if you buy your own plane and you start to venture out of that small bubble and you go places, airports, have to, endure different kinds of weather, sometimes on your own without anybody there to, give you advice or share their experience. I've learned a lot like that. And to me, as I look back, today is probably the most valuable thing about owning my own plane. Have I come across costs that I didn't anticipate? Yes. Have I spent more money than I wish I had? Yes. But all in the name of safety, knowing that, aviation in itself isn't a cheap hobby. But most importantly, I think that every time I've done it, I've learned so much. And I think that in the end of the day, it all adds up to safety and you being a safer pilot. And, I think the most important thing is making sure that every time we are up there, we're being the safest pilots we can.
Wow. And that's incredible that you pointed all of those out, because I couldn't agree more. Experience is the best teacher. And in the world of aviation, usually no 2 days are ever the same, whether you look at it from the point of view of weather or from the point of view of clearancy. So just whatever it is the case might be, no 2 days are the same. So, it's really, really good to see how you've really outlined all of those things that you said in such a manner whereby anybody that ever wants to get involved in it can see what it's really like to go through a day to day of owning an aircraft. Nadine and I were actually speaking about this today, and we said if we ever were to get in a position where we could get our own aircraft for ATAP, Nadine said it would be the best thing in the world, because we would learn so much more about aviation than if we were just renting these aircrafts. Whenever the aircraft goes for its annual check, you want to be there. It's your aircraft. So maybe you want to be there and see how they take out some things out and how they put it back in. And, doing this over so many years will allow you to be one with the aircraft. You fully understand it. You will never feel like you're in a vulnerable situation. Like you said, looking at something as simple as the panel of an aircraft and understanding not just what's in front of you, but what goes into putting it together. If anything were to malfunction, the first thing that you've got to do is fly the aircraft. Yeah. Aviate, right, navigate, and then communicate. But in this particular instance, when you're aviating, then if something happened, you can go, oh yeah, Tom mentioned that normally, it's one of these things here, and you just do it and you're good, and you're, aviating and you're good. And it's just years and years of paying attention to stuff like that. So I'm really glad that you're able to point all of those out. I wanted to ask you, Bruno, Pilot Bruno, what's your favorite thing about your aircraft? Because your aircraft is such a beautiful airplane, it really, really is beautiful. And I'm a fan of just that aircraft itself, November 9984 uniform. So what's your favorite thing about this aircraft?
I want to say it's really docile to fly, compared to other planes that I've flown. Okay. And I've heard people say that it's too light and it's just too sluggish, not sluggish, but it's just it's all over the place because it's
Yeah.
lighter. But I really do like the fact that it takes very little control input for you to, do turn,
To
climb,
maneuver.
descend,
Yeah.
and so it's really a plane that you have to fly with your fingers, rather than your hands,
Yeah.
and that's something that I like about the Grummans. There are a lot of like things that are special about the Grummans. They have a lot of history, and I can talk about that, because I educated myself a lot. But I think that other than being a plane that it's super easy to maintain, I found, and that was, fortunately, a plane that was well taken care of before my time.
Yeah.
And I benefit from that today because now I get to carry a heritage of a plane that was well taken care of. I try to take care of in the same way. It's funny that, like I said, it's a really docile, easy plane to fly. I remember when I was in flight training, and one of my biggest struggles were landings. And my CFI was sitting right next to me, and he would say, "Come on, grease this landing," or do a soft field landing. And I would struggle so much because I wanted to make it as soft as possible, and it would never be as soft as his landings. And I had to keep the nose gear up, and to me that was like, "Oh, but it feels so heavy; it will never stay up," and stuff like that. And then nowadays, one thing that I learned about it's a very forgiving plane, but the landing gear structure is something they have to take care about and take care of. And the nose wheel, it's called the castering nose wheel. You don't control it with your feet. You actually have differential braking, and it turns on itself, which is a great thing, but also makes the nose gear really fragile. Yeah, so I was saying, I used to struggle a lot with soft field landings, and the Grummans have a very particular thing about the nose wheel, the nose gear. It's a castering nose wheel, which means that you can't really control them with the pedals. You control them with differential braking.
Yeah.
So you brake on the right side and the left side, and the plane will turn. Which is an awesome feature when you're taxiing, especially on tight spaces, because the plane will literally turn around the point without even leaving. You can do 360s. So it's really easy to park, but that makes the nose wheel really fragile. And one of the things that every Grumman CFI or checkout pilot will tell, and I've read it over and over, is when you land or when you take off, really, you got to really protect that nose gear, meaning you got to land and keep it off the ground. So a normal landing on a Grumman is a soft field landing, because you have to touch it really, you have to touch down really, really softly and keep that nose gear up, up until as far as you can, so you can protect it. So it's something that I struggled a lot during my training, and I passed my check ride, literally having to, maybe I got it right twice in the 2 check rides that that I passed, turned into a practice or a skill that I learned thanks to my plane, because I wanted to treat it nicely. I want to take care of my tires. I don't want to risk blowing a tire. I don't want to risk having to change those tires too often. So learning to take care of the plane makes you a more skilled pilot too, because you will better respect the limits of your plane. You just learn so much more. It goes back to what I was saying. Owning a plane makes you a more knowledgeable pilot, and therefore a safer and better pilot.
Wow, that is no, that's incredible. It goes back to that whole thing of, when you are in the world of aviation and you're dealing with day to days, that one day you're doing this and the other day you're doing something else entirely. It always allows you to be better. It becomes a lifestyle. So you're a lifestyle pilot. So at one point you were learning how to do soft fields because it was good. It's part of the curriculum. You have to pass your check rides. And then when it becomes a matter of fact where, I don't want to have to change 4 tires a year, you start to do it and then you become better. it's I think the best way to put it is when you drive, when you know do your driving test and you pass your driving check ride or your driving test. They don't call it driving check ride. I don't know why I said that, but they call it they call it a driving test. When you pass your driving test, if you don't own your own car, it's difficult to conceptualize or put into practice the things that you're being taught. All the reverse around the corner, all this stuff. I don't know what driving is like in the US. We drive in the UK, slightly different. It's not. It doesn't make the most sense when you own your own car. That's when it starts to make sense, some of the things that your instructor is telling you. I think that it's definitely an experience that a lot of people, aspire to. We can't wait here at ATAP when the day comes that we maybe hopefully get one of our own aircraft as well. We will definitely be talking to you about it, about our experience in getting an aircraft.
I'll be happy to help.
Yeah, we'll be happy to share it with you. So Oshkosh Airshow, probably, I think, the biggest air show in the world, I think. I don't know if there's anything bigger than Oshkosh.
It is.
It's the biggest in the world. Okay.
At least in the number of aircraft that take part of the expo. Yeah.
It's incredible. I've always wanted to go to Oshkosh for like ever. And I know that one day I definitely will. But I've wanted to go to Oshkosh for the longest time. In 2021, they had 608,000 people went to Oshkosh. Right now, I wasn't there. You can tell us all about it. I want to hear your story from getting up and going and your whole experience. I want to hear about it. But 608,000 people were there. 10,000 aircrafts were present. There were 5,000 volunteers. They made $170 million in revenue over, the period that they put the show together. There's obviously, when you go to an Oshkosh air show, there's so many things going on. There's aircraft doing, a lot of fun stuff. It's basically an air show. But 608,000 people, almost 500,000 people were there. Tell us your whole experience about it. Even go as far as telling us when you first heard about Oshkosh and what made you always want to go. I think everybody wants to go to Oshkosh anyway, but tell us your whole thing about it.
I read about Oshkosh. I used to read about Oshkosh since I was a kid. Reading aviation magazines. I knew there was a place to go if you love aviation, but when I lived in Brazil, Oshkosh was just so far away. The opportunity to travel abroad was rare, and you had to do it once or twice every year. And I mean, it was just hard to go to Oshkosh as a kid. Nobody wants to go there. I was the only aviation enthusiast in the family. So when I started flying and then having my own plane, I started to think, well, what are the trips that I want to do? What are the places that I want to go and that I now can, because I can fly my plane without having to worry about schedules, rental rates, or, whatever it may be. And Sun and Fun and Oshkosh were the two big aviation events in the country or in the year that I wanted to go. Well, I went to both of them this year for the first time. I went to Sun and Fun, and it was just amazing. And my idea of an event like that was just, it's an air show and it lasts 3 days. So you go watch the air show, go home or go to a hotel. Next day you're there and watch the air show. But at Sun and Fun, and I learned this when I was there, it's actually this gathering and this community of people. And yes, you have air shows and you have aircraft expos and everything, but it's also about the people. It's like a big family coming together, and they drink and they eat and they do parties, and there's all of the other events, official and not official events that take part around that event. It's like a Coachella, it's much like a Coachella or a Tomorrowland, I would say.
Wireless.
You're there. Yes, exactly. So you're there for the music, but there's so much other stuff to do. That it's the same thing with this. And at Sun and Fun, I heard a lot of people say, you got to go to Oshkosh, because if you're loving this, Oshkosh is 10 times better. And I was like, how can it be 10 times better? I mean, this is, great. I think people are exaggerating. So I went to Oshkosh, and I can safely say it's 10 times better because it's 10 times bigger. It's 10 times bigger, man. And a lot of people, that's the event that everybody goes to. Sun and Fun is in Florida, and a lot of people goes. But Oshkosh is really the main event. It's like the World Cup. So it's flying there was awesome. It was my second, probably my longest trip, that longest trip that I ever, made with my plane. I went
Mm.
with my friend Neil,
Mm.
and it was, every trip like this is such
Yeah.
a amazing experience. We're
Mm.
flying in states and in places that you have never flown before.
Mm.
The weather is different. The
Mm.
terrain is different.
Mm.
The obstacles are different. The airspaces are different.
Mm.
The controllers are different. You learn a lot about. I mean, it all works the same way
Mm.
around the entire world, but
Mm.
you go places. It's different. You visit different, airports, and you fly, for hours and hours. You make a few stop, and you go for another, hours and hours. So that you got to make decisions along the way. When you're flying long distances,
Mm.
you got to make decisions on weather, because chances are, or not chances, you are likely to run into different kinds of weather along your route,
Mhm.
because you're flying to different time zones, and
Mhm. Mhm.
all of that, and regions of the country with different weather characteristics. So
Mhm.
that in itself was a great experience. And then you
Wow.
land, and we were meant to land at Oshkosh. Everybody wants to land at Oshkosh and fly the Fisk arrival and all of that. And I wanted to do that. But at some point, we had to make a decision, because we were arriving. The event started the week on a weekend, and we flew there on a Wednesday,
Hmm.
or like from Tuesday, on Monday to Tuesday, and so we were arriving kind of not late, but after a bunch of people had arrived.
Hmm.
And because it was my first time, I was really, really concerned about. I know there's a lot of place to park, but will there be available parking space for the plane? Will I find out that I get close and then I learn, oh, the airport is closed, or
Hmm.
you cannot park here, you got to go somewhere.
Mhm.
And I always knew that there are satellite airports like Fond du Lac, where I landed included, that a lot of people go to because they don't want to deal with Oshkosh.
Hmm.
Plus, Oshkosh, the airport gets closed, or is closed for most of the day, because of the air shows and everything. So you either get in really early in the morning, or you get in late, in the afternoon, when you usually have weather and stuff. So we found ourselves halfway there, having to make the choice: do we land somewhere and wait until the airport opens, knowing that there will be a huge line of planes trying to get in with us, or should we just go somewhere else nearby, like Fond du Lac, get in a bus, because they have shuttle buses, all the time, and just like don't have to, be
Worry.
concerned. My plane would be on the grass, at Oshkosh. If I made it to a parking space, it would be on the grass. And I was hearing a lot of people concerned about rain, thunderstorms, hail, and like like everything, the slush, and it getting all like dirty and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to Oshkosh. Like I'm not camping next to my plane or anything. I would just park the plane and go to an Airbnb in the city. So like I don't need my plane to be there. I'd rather land in an airport and not worry about time. I would just land, park the plane, hand somebody the keys, and just go enjoy the event like everybody else will. My plane won't be there, but I will. So that was the call that I made. And the first day we got there, it was late. I think it was 5 p.m. by the time we actually got to the event to get our bracelets or whatever, our tickets. And man, even though the event was closing, there was still so much going on. Parties, people were still there, and everybody's having fun. And that was like every single day: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Every day was just like the same. It's this huge gathering. And yes, there are 680,000 people that went, not on the same day, during the course of a week. But just so you can compare, the Oshkosh population is 60,000. So during that week, they have 10 times more people in that 1 week.
Wow.
In the city. So it's a big event. The city mobilizes itself. Everybody knows about it. People leave their houses so they can rent them as Airbnbs, because man, it's that 1 week that people, the city blooms, and they make enough money for the rest of the year, I think.
Yeah.
and the event itself is amazing. I mean, the expo, the air shows, but most importantly, the people. You see pilots and aircraft enthusiasts from all ages. You see 90-year-old pilots that fly their old planes, and they have been doing so for the last 30 years, going to Oshkosh. It's this tradition. And vendors and friends and just people that you see on Instagram and you don't get to, see in real life until you get to Oshkosh and you meet them in person. So
wow,
it was just a real amazing experience. I mean, I left Oshkosh like pretty sure that I'm going every year, because at some point, I'm pretty sure that after your second or third year, it may be kind of the same, all the same air shows, the same whatever, but it doesn't matter, because just the opportunity of being together with all of those people again, that you only have the chance to connect online most of the year. It's worth it, man. It's really amazing.
It's like you said, it's like our wireless, it's like our Coachella. That's the events where all the aviation enthusiasts get together and just have a wild, fun time. I can't wait. One of these days, we're in the UK, but one of these days we're gonna get ourselves to Wisconsin in the US and visit Oshkosh. So in terms of how long it took you from because that it's a long flight. If you're to jump on a Delta or United Airlines, it's probably going to take about 2 hours 15, maybe 2 hours 20 minutes. But when you're flying a Grumman, it's a different strategy. It takes a bit longer. So how long was the entire flight anyway?
Flying time, I want to say it. I would say it was around 7 hours.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Not too bad.
7 hours.
Yeah.
We made 2 stops.
Right.
One in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then one in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Which we had friends there. We have friends there, so we decided to make it a overnight stop.
Ah, nice.
We didn't have to.
Yeah.
We didn't have to, but we thought, you know what? Let's not push it. We don't need to. Yeah. We don't need to get there today. We left Monday. And we're like, you know what? Let's just sleep, get a good rest, and then the following day, you fly. And it took us like 7 hours, 7.5 hours, I would say, because every time we're going west, you face a lot of headwinds, right? So we were facing headwinds all the time. On our way back, I think the overall trip was, I want to say, 5.5 hours.
Wow.
It was much quicker with one stop only. Because we had tailwinds pushing us all the way through. Wow. So and it's fun. I mean, for me as a pilot, my friend is a pilot. I don't mind being in a small plane for that long. I don't know how a passenger would feel, somebody that is just focusing on getting there. Because here's the thing: if you fly for pilots, going there is a part of the adventure. Whereas for a passenger, maybe it's just their means of transportation. So if you're taking someone with you to an air show like this, just make sure that they are comfortable with the fact that it's going to take 7 hours to a trip, a plane trip, that would take them 2 hours and 50 minutes if they took Delta or United. In fact, as a matter of fact, my friend and I flew on the Grumman, and we have our wives fly commercially to meet us there, because they would get bored in the plane. So.
If anyone was ever to come on my own private airplane, and I had something like a Grumman, this is how I would try and sell it to them. I'll just say, hey, you get a window seat. What's bad about that?
Exactly.
When you're flying general aviation, you always have a window seat. Always. And it's always massive as well. You can just look right down, and when you're flying at 37,000 feet, I don't care what picture you take, it's not going to be as cool as when you can still kind of see the houses, you can still kind of see the terrain. It's beautiful. But wow, man, I love talking to you. You were really kind to come and speak with us on Clubhouse when you did, and it was an inspiring conversation. And I could tell, because of the amount of people that were messaging me whilst you were speaking, can I come on stage and speak to Bruno? Can I come on stage and ask him a question? Oh my God, I want to work with him. I'm like, all right, guys, don't worry. We'll get to the end. The popular Nadine within our clubhouse setup was, my administrator. So she was one that was responsible for helping to moderate the rooms and bring people up, etc. So I would then have to message Nadine and say, hey, Nadine, so if you people want to come up and speak to Pilot Bruno, can you bring them up? But it was just fun to see that, because I took to social media immediately. Honestly, I don't think I'm explaining how good your videos are. Your videos and all your reels are so good, man. I really genuinely like them. But when I was posting your stuff, I was, because I post your content, I know I'm allowed to do that. So I post your content all the time on my stuff, on my social media. People are seeing it. They're just like, oh, yeah. So this guy's coming to talk to you on Clubhouse. Yeah. Like, how did you get Pilot Bruno? I don't know how we got him. I just messaged him on Instagram and he was nice. He said, yeah, I don't know, he said yes forever.
I'm glad to be here, man.
Thank you so much, man. No, definitely thank you so much. So in your flying career now, almost 4 years of you doing it, what would you say? The way they normally ask the question is, what's your golden aviation moment? But I don't want to use the term golden aviation moment. I just want to say, what's your favorite moment in aviation thus far? What's been a highlight of your 4 years of flying, whether it was from training, whether it was on your way to Oshkosh, or just any moment that you can look back and say, that's the moment right there?
I want to say that I know it's probably not a particular moment, but or just maybe it is. A couple of weekends ago, it was a holiday here in the U.S., Labor Day, and I decided to take a weekend trip with my wife to New Hampshire, which is north of Boston, and we decided to take the plane and fly there. And I think that as we were flying there, it's just like me and my wife, and we decided to take a weekend trip with the plane. I made plans. I made the flight plan. I decided the route. I had to make decisions on the weather because it was a funky weather day, and we still got there, and we enjoyed, a weekend. Decided to come back. Went and then 2 days later we were back home. And I just looked back at it, and actually, as I was flying, I think when I was flying back, it just hit me, like during my entire training and the 2 years that I spent, training and getting my licenses, my sole goal was to become a proficient pilot, so I could fly family, friends, and have good experiences, And, one thing led to another. I decided to get my own plane. I was fortunate to be able to get my plane, and a plane that's, trustworthy, that was in good condition, that I care for, that I love flying. And suddenly I just realized that, my whole mission was being accomplished, because I am now a guy who, can fly anywhere I want without, with the freedom to fly. And most importantly, share that experience with somebody else, or give somebody else an experience that they wouldn't do otherwise. It's so rare to be able to, for somebody to say, yeah, my husband, my friend, my colleague, or whatever it may be, took me on a plane to, this place that was far away, and it would take us like 6 hours driving, and but we got there in an hour and a half on the plane. And I think that maybe this is not a one particular moment, but I think that this is a phase in my aviation life, I would say, that I'm learning to appreciate everything that I worked hard for in aviation. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of, even money, for you to get to a place where you become a proficient pilot. And I'm still trying. I'm still, every flight you learn, every flight you have to do new things. But I'm happy that I got to a place where flying as a lifestyle, like you mentioned, is starting to become a reality. Wow. It's what I do on my weekends. We make plans to enjoy a weekend. Let's go to the beach. Let's go to a faraway beach so we can get there by plane. Or it's winter time. Let's plan for winter adventures, and all the challenges that it brings to flying. Fall, the leaves are going to start changing color. So let's fly somewhere where you can see them by plane. So it starts opening a new a world, not only for me, but for those the ones who I love, the ones I care for. And being able to share these experiences with them, and it's really, really rewarding, and it just helps me realize that this is what I worked so hard for, in aviation, and that's probably it's every time I'm in a flight and I'm doing that, I think to myself, this is why I worked hard for.
Wow.
And so I would say that's the one.
That's the one. Wow, that must be an incredible feeling. Before we go over to Nadine for our new segment, I just wanted to ask, and in terms of the amount of hours you're logging, are you still logging about 100 each year? Or are you finding that you're maybe logging a bit more now that you have more access to your aircraft?
A bit more, yes. More, yeah. I'm on track to log a bit more. I will say it's within that margin, but a little more than that. Okay. I think that as of now, I don't measure how many hours, but as I look back, I literally try to get as much flying as I can. And I could, throughout the summer, taking advantage of the good weather here in New York, and so. As I look back, there wasn't a moment where I was like, I wish I could have flown, but I couldn't because of this. I couldn't because of that. Like the plane was grounded with the problem, or the weather was bad for like weekend straight. No, I was really fortunate to, have the plane in good shape because I take care of it because, I wanted it to be in good shape all the time. And every time I saw an opportunity, I would make time to fly, whether it meant, jumping in my car after work and enduring traffic to get to the airport, or waking up really early on a Friday before and actually going to the airport and flying from 7 to 8:30 before actually going to work. Right. I was just trying to make the most out of my free time and flying. And maybe this year it will be more like 130 hours. I don't know. But, what matters to me is I'm flying often, and that's what keeps me able to be a safe pilot, because so far, so good.
Wow. Pilot Bruno, you're an absolute legend, man. We appreciate you here.
Thank you.
We're going to go over to Nadine just before we all jump off. Nadine does our news segments. Nadine tries to find news that's relevant to our conversation, and we sometimes pose this news to our guests so that we can see what our guest take is on it or what their perspective is, because obviously we value our guests' thoughts on some of these issues that we discuss in our news segment. So Nadine, over to you. What do you have first?
Quite a few things. This weekend is a very busy weekend for private flying in the UK. We've got the Private Flyer Show in High Wycombe Air Park in Buckinghamshire this weekend. So they showcase everything from private flying, pre-owned aircraft sales, aircraft share sales, products, services, everything to do with private flying. That's what's happening in High Wycombe this weekend.
Fantastic. So we've got our own mini Oshkosh then.
Yeah. A little mini one, not as good. And tickets are reasonable. £15. You can fly in for about 19 or just turn up and pay 20.
Oh, just turn up. Sounds like a good deal to me. Sounds like we need to get Bruno to one of these, man. I don't know how he's gonna get his Grumman there, but hey, let's just say, hey Bruno, let's go, man. Come on, bro.
Well, you know what? It's funny. After I learned about the Grummans and the history and got in touch with Grumman pilot communities, I was surprised by how many Grummans there are in Europe, especially in the UK and Germany. So chances are you'll see a lot of Grummans in this event because they are everywhere in the UK.
You're right about that. Like, it was just last week I was looking at one school somewhere, I think it was in North York or somewhere like that in the UK. And there's Grummans around, because the thing about the Grumman is if you don't know your aircraft really well, you're going to get confused. You might think it looks like a Piper, but it's not a Piper, Right. And then if you look at it, inside the cockpit, it's got an injection for a throttle. So if you're not paying attention, you're thinking, what's this Piper looking aircraft that doesn't have that? Pipers have a real throttle, right?
Right.
Not a real
Yeah.
throttle. I don't use the word real, but it looks like what you would have on a self on an actual aircraft.
Yes.
And then you've got this
Yeah.
injection and this injector, and you're
Right.
thinking, what's going on here? And then you've got, but the way you would know with yours is rather than having a door like a Piper, you've got like this glass roof panel that you can
Right.
push backwards.
Cool.
So a lot of people are just going to look at that and go, "Oh yeah, Piper," and you're like, "Nope, that's a Grumman."
Yeah.
That's definitely a Grumman.
Yes,
I don't know if I've noticed this in your aircraft, but with your flaps, have you got that? You know, the you pull it up like a little like the Warrior, or have you got like
No. The
lever
are you don't have a lever, you have a switch.
Oh,
and
okay.
the flaps are electrically driven.
Oh,
They're electrical
okay.
flaps.
All right.
Much like the
Cessnas.
the Grummans are the Cessnas.
172.
Yes. The Cessnas, the 172s and the 182s
Yeah.
and the 152s.
Yeah.
They have the injection throttle.
Yeah.
Like the Grummans, and they have the electrical flaps. But the electrical flaps on the Grumman are it's just a switch that you have in the center console here. The good part of of having electrical flaps is that you don't have a huge lever that you have to pull and go back. It's just a switch, so it's much easier. But and then people think, well, what if you have an electrical failure? Well, it means that you won't be able to operate the flaps. But on the other side, the Grummans are really easy to slow down and land, even if you don't have flaps. If you know how to maneuver for the approach, you can easily land the plane without any flaps, which you can also do on the Grumman, on the Pipers, and you can also do on the Cessnas, of course. But like you train for it, like what are you gonna have flaps on the Pipers? It's much better because it's you don't have to worry about
lever.
it.
It's always going to work. Always.
Yeah, exactly. It's always going to work. Just like having mechanical landing gear.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to worry about
it's always gonna work.
getting stuck or anything. You just pull it up and pull it down. But yeah, so it's an injection throttle and it's electrical flaps.
Yeah. Let me ask you this one technical question. When you're flying, when you're about to engage flaps, in my pilot training, I was always taught to ever so slightly lower the pitch of the aircraft, and then engage your flaps. Now, that was because I was flying in a Piper Warrior. I don't know. And it maybe the school I was learning to fly at, that was just a technique that, because everybody has SOPs and everybody's SOPs is different. Standard operating procedure for those that are watching that don't know. But yeah, it was just ever so slightly lower the nose down, engage flaps 1. Ever so slightly lower the nose down, watch your airspeed, engage flaps 2. Is that a technique that is it pretty common is that something you do as well, or do you do it slightly differently?
So the Grummans, and this is actually an interesting thing. In the Grummans, you operate the flaps electrically, but unlike the Cessnas, it's not like you bring the switch to the first flap selection, then the second, and then the third. You can freely you hold the button, the switch, and the flaps go down. Which means if you let it go, at any point the flaps will stop there. So it's not like you have like only 3 flap positions. You can literally lower the flaps. Like you can choose like whatever the flaps you want. You have the markings that the indicator that says, oh, this is 1/3, this is 2/3, this is 3/3. Like I think it's 15 degrees, 30, and 45.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you can take off with like 10 degrees with 7 degrees of flaps, or you can land with 22 degrees of flaps. Because what I usually do, because the indicator is down here on the center console, you don't want to be looking down every time you're putting flaps, especially if you're turning base, or turning final. So I count, and Cessna pilots do this too. Like you count 1, 2, 3, and then you let go, and then 1, 2, 3, and then you let go again, because 3 seconds is usually the time that the flaps take to travel from one position to the other. If you let go in the middle, it would stop there.
Wow.
So it gives you the freedom to pick whatever position of the flaps you want. Now back to your question. The Grummans have a tendency to balloon up when you put the first notch of flaps. So every time I'm on the for instance, if I join downwind, I usually the the way I was taught on the Pipers is when you are being the numbers or your landing point, you reduce power and you add the first notch of flaps. Then you turn base, you add another one, and then you turn final, you add the final one. In the Grummans, and I learned this just by practicing it. I learned that as soon as I enter downwind and I'm established on downwind, I put the first notch of flaps for two reasons. First, you will want to climb. So when I'm on downwind, it gives me enough time to readjust the trim and readjust the plane, so I don't have to worry about that once I start descending. And so it's one last thing for me to do. Because you pull the power out, or you pull the power to like 1500 RPM, the nose will go down and you start descending. If you do that and then you put flaps, you will go back up. So then you're kind of like fighting the plane to stay at, if you do that before actually start descending, it's better. Same thing if you're flying an approach, for instance. You pass the final approach fix. That's usually when you start, reduce power to follow the glide slope, and you put the first notch of flaps. In the Grummans, if you don't account for how much you will start to climb up again, you may lose the glide slope and destabilize the approach. So what I do is, as soon as I reach 90 knots on the approach, I put the first notch of flaps in, and I leave it there, and I reset the plane to to what I want with that setting, because I know as soon as I start adding more flaps, the nose will go down, not up. But on the first notch of flaps, it usually will go up. In the Grummans, again, this is particular for me in my plane. To avoid destabilizing a descent or an approach because of the flaps, I usually add it when I am on downwind at a safe speed before I continue the approach. So it's one less thing I have to worry about when I want to set up for landing.
Wow. Yeah, so that's some really good, tidy Grumman tips for you guys, folks, you Grumman pilots out here in the UK. That's from a pro. Nadine, over back to you. So what else is in the news this week?
Electric charging points for aircrafts.
Okay.
Are you ready for this one?
Sounds exciting. I can't wait.
Electric chargers for aircrafts and cars are approved by EASA. The first independent electric aircraft charger has been approved by EASA, called SkyCharge. It's been developed by Switzerland's Green Motion company, which is now part of the global supplier Eaton. The charger is available either as a fixed version on a stand or with wheels for mobility. What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, one day, my friend pilot Bruno might not be able to fly Grumman because electric aircrafts are going to take over the scene, and as long as he's happy enough with the charger situation, I guess I'm cool too. But no, seriously, is this the one that we were kind of reviewing earlier, where the chargers can charge vehicles as well?
Yes, and it's the same as a CEE electric supply. So it's the same plug as the CEE plug.
My thoughts are
available in London in some boroughs already.
That's
and
good.
Some street lampposts.
My thoughts are, if you can kill two birds with one stone, so you can charge your car up, you charge your Tesla, whatever you drive, and you can charge up your aircraft. I think it works. I think we've had this conversation before that in the next 10, 15 years, it's very possible that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this, electric cars. Electric cars are here. They're going to be here for a long time. But electric aircraft are probably going to be entering the scene within the next 10, 15 years. So I'm all here for it, as long as, because you have to think about electric aircraft is range. Range is the main concern for most. How far can this aircraft go, and how much of a charge are we going to be able to get? How much charge is going to equate a distance, for instance? So if you charge your aircraft for an hour, does that mean only maybe 100 miles? And how long would it be before this aircraft can go like the Grumman can go maybe 1,000 nautical miles or whatever the case might be? So there's a lot to think about here. But now that we've got pilot Bruno, we can try and get his perspective before we go.
Yeah, I agree that I believe that the electrical powered aircraft is something for the future for sure. We just saw aircraft that are starting to be tested, and Embraer investing on electrical a hybrid plane or of some sort. So is Airbus. So I think that that's definitely the future. Like you said, I think that we will have to find a way of making the batteries work for long. The good thing about planes is perhaps because you're flying, you can perhaps recharge your batteries as you fly thanks to solar panels or something, which might not be. The cars don't have enough surface to. I want to say, but yeah, I think that even when with if you think about how gas prices are rising, especially avgas, which is the main one of the main costs for an aircraft ownership. Like you have got to pay for gas, and they burn a lot of gas. I think that like the day we can all fly electrical planes that can take us as far as our current planes takes us, I think it's going to be even perhaps a more accessible hobby, or something for people to do. I don't know how far in the future that it will happen, but I'm pretty sure that once the technology for cars or for other vehicles finds itself in a place where it's just easy to do it for all cars, and I think we're almost there, right?
I think you're right, because we've got solar panel charging here already in Old Beckenham Airfield. So you are on the right path. You are right.
See? Maybe I'll invent the first one. Who knows? I'll invent the first electrically powered Grumman. That would be amazing.
Well, look, listen, Pilot Bruno, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the All Things Aviation podcast today. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for honoring our invitation. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up here, folks. Nadine, thanks for your time today. And to everybody that watches and supports the channel, thank you very much. We'll catch you this time next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. You can find Pilot Bruno at his Instagram handle, which is
fly_with_Bruno.
That's correct. So fly _with_Bruno on Instagram. We're going to put everything in the description so that you guys can find this man and support everything that he does. But for now, that's it from us. See you this time next week. Take care.
Yeah. 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 Allow me to introduce myself, just in case you don't know. Say hello, hello, hello. Yeah. Say hello, say hello. Now I don't quite know how to start this. I can't lie to